Welcome, everybody. We are live here today. You've got your host, Gabe Larson from InsideSales.com. We're going to be talking about breaking open the predictive black box. We've got a panel of experts. This topic of AI is important, of predictive is important, of data is important, but we want to make sure we come to you and help you understand it. So a couple housekeeping items before I introduce our guests here. Number one, you will get this session. If you got to leave early, we will make sure right after we send you a copy of this so you can catch it. It will be on demand, but not for very long. We do not keep on demand forever, so try to get it and get it fast. If you have questions, we want this to be interactive for us and our panel members here. So if you can right now, grab your Q&A. No, you know what? Not the Q&A. That's where you'd go more very particular questions for myself or one of the panel members. But mostly I want you to grab the chat box so that you actually can chat with myself and others. And if you can, tell me where you're from and your name as we get people kind of trickling in here. I just want to make sure we understand who we have in the room and that you're using that. So I'm going to stop sharing and jump in here. Let's see over in the right-hand side. There we go. Yep. People coming in. Correct. Let's see. I'm going to say Gabe Larson from Salt Lake City, Utah. There you go. Yeah. Welcome. That's what I'm talking about. Yep. Alex, welcome from Serbia. Don Atkins. Oh, awesome. Don, thanks so much for coming. I've wanted to catch up with you from TE Connectivity. Joe, welcome. Dirk from Houston, Bill, good. Guys, keep that chat active. I'm going to be watching it. We want to answer the questions you want to talk about. Chad from Dallas, I think you got cleaner air than we do. Good. All right, well, let's get into it, you guys. Let's introduce our panel members and then go right into the topic of predictive. Number one, Katie, why don't we start with you?
Hey, Gabe. And hi, Dirk. I'm from Tomball, so shout out to the Houston folks.
Nice.
I'm not in Tomball right now. I'm actually up in Portland. But I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Discover.org. We are a leading provider of sales and marketing intelligence. So basically, our job is to give our customers the most accurate and complete data on their target buyers so that they can grow faster.
Love it. Katie, thanks so much for joining, guys. Discover.org doing some awesome stuff up there in the Pacific Northwest. Mike, over to you.
Cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Mike Burton. I'm one of the co-founders at Bombora, and we are the leading intent data aggregator.
I love it. Yeah. Intent data, guys, we're going to be talking about it today, what role it has in sales and marketing. If you haven't heard about it, you should, because it's important. Dave, last but not least, over to you.
Great. Dave Boyce. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer and Chief Customer Officer for InsideSales.com. We are a sales acceleration platform that uses AI to help sales teams crush their quota.
Love it. Nice, short, simple, to the point. All right, let's get into it, you guys. Question number one, I just want to set the foundation here. I feel like one of the problems that we talked about as we were all prepping for this is a little bit of confusion in the market. Artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, data-driven sales, data-driven marketing. It gets a little bit confusing, I think, for people who are trying to understand how to utilize this stuff. Maybe we can just take one step back. Dave, let's start with you. As you think about artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, can you lay the foundation as what that means to you?
Yeah, so let's get the confusion behind us and let's just get really simple. I have a very, very simple view of it. The funny thing is we all use AI, quote unquote, in our daily lives. You know, when you watch Netflix, you don't start at A and scroll down through all the titles until you find the one you like. You let Netflix recommend some stuff that you might enjoy. And when you use Waze to drive down the road and pick a route from point A to point B, it recommends the one that's the least congested, has the least traffic incidents, and will get you there the quickest. Same thing with Amazon. People who bought X also bought Y. Those are all examples in my mind of what I would call artificial intelligence. And my definition is pretty simple. It's the use of data and science to provide recommendations that lead to enhanced results. That's it. data and science to provide recommendations that lead to enhanced results, meaning results better than you would get just without it. It could be as simple, I mean, I'm pretty expansive. It could be as simple as a rules-based engine. If large company in the entertainment industry, then call them for a salesperson, because we sell to the entertainment industry and we sell to big companies. So sort my list based on that. It might be multiple nested rules. It must be large and entertainment and in a certain geography and in my territory. Okay, fine. That's great. That's better than just starting at A and going to Z.
Yeah.
It could be multivariate analysis, like, I'm considering a lot of variables, then some are weighted differently. And then that's where we get into predictive analytics. As soon as it gets to the point where it's hard for a human to kind of write the nested rules, if this and this, then this, or else this. That's why we have algorithms like random forest algorithms or neural nets or support vector machines. They know how to predict the outcome of a certain action, and they know how to weight all those variables, and they use data and science to do it. And that's what sits behind these very simple recommendations. That's how I would define AI.
Got it. Love it. Katie, let's pass over to you. I mean, you play obviously a lot in the predictive analytics space. How would you differentiate or talk through that talk track a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I think the one thing that I would add to what Dave said is that you can do predictive intelligence without AI. And in fact, we've been doing predictive intelligence for a long time, right, in the sales and marketing space. So I can look at my data, historical data, and I can say, hey, these are the people who bought from me in the past, and I'm going to then model out who will then buy from me in the future. Now, what we've added to that is the scale and the speed and the power that AI can augment kind of what we can do as humans. So now the modeling is that much more sophisticated. The speed is that much faster. The scale of those models is that much more sophisticated. But I wouldn't say they are mutually exclusive. AI on top of predictive just makes it that much more powerful.
Got it. Yeah, so there is a lot of combination there, and it can actually make it more powerful. And we're going to talk today, guys, a little bit about both, and we will make sure we try to clarify as we go down this path. Let's get into some of the details. One of the reasons this whole conversation came up, it actually started with you guys, Katie, and a survey that you did talking about using predictive analytics in sales and marketing. Don't want to steal the thunder. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, some of the findings that came from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talk to our customers all the time, and it's funny. It's almost like the more data that there is out there, the more overwhelming it is to figure out what to do with it. And so one of the things that we wanted to do as an outcome of this survey is really understand what types of data are most predictive in a buying process. And obviously that's different for every company and every industry, but we looked across several hundred sales and marketing professionals. We surveyed them to understand what data they collect, how they're using that data, and then looking back, which of those data points actually predicted a purchase. And there's a bunch of findings, so I'm not going to go through all the findings, but I'd highlight just two for the purposes of this webinar. The first one is that when we looked at across about 80 different data points that people were collecting, or types of data, I should say, that people were collecting, they really fell into these three buckets. The first one is what we would call like basic fit data, right? So what does the person look like? What does the company look like that they work for? Demographic, firmographics, technographics, a lot of the stuff that we're all gathering today, right? I sell to people in this industry with this title and, this revenue band. The second category of data is what we call intent data. And that is people are behaving implicitly in a way that would indicate that they have intent to buy. And then finally, the third category of data is what we called opportunity data, which meant there were favorable conditions that were existing at that company that, again, indicated that the timing was right. So it could be something like a round of funding or a leadership change or a planned initiative that they indicated perhaps through like a job posting. So across all of these different data points, what we realized was that most people gathered fit data. Some people gather fit and intent data, but only 15% of companies were gathering all three types. And it was when you gathered all three types that you were really good at predicting.
Yeah.
So that was kind of finding one. And then finding two is that the intent data was the most predictive. And that is, people are researching solutions. They're looking at my website. They're looking at my competitor's website. They're downloading content. They're implicitly indicating that they're ready to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. So intent data was kind of one of the things that did really pop out. Mike, this obviously dovetails nice into your world. Bombora co-founder, thinking about why people buy, the behaviors behind it. Can you just double click on Katie's statement of just what is intent data, just so we all understand it? Then maybe go into why do you think it was actually the most predictive?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what Katie said is exactly what the data aims to do. Is first understand how much a company or an entity, right? So Boeing.com or Nike.com or the U.S. military, right? So some business or entity, we aim to understand how much that business or entity normally consumes research on a given topic or cluster of topics or product area, right? And if you understand how much a company normally does that research, then the data starts to spit out these spikes, or what we call surges, right? So now we know, like, hey, this company is going into a big spike. They're doing much more research than they normally do against topic XYZ. So that's a bit about the data and how it behaves and what it aims to do, and why it's probably the most predictive. Think about your organization. What are you in market? Are you in the market for a phone system right now? Maybe, but probably not. Are you in market for a CRM? Maybe, probably not though. 401k plan, brand new cloud infrastructure, right? Like there's just only certain amount of things that your company wants to buy right now. It's not because all of those solutions aren't great. It's just there's only a finite amount of things that people care about at any given time. So yeah, our data, what we say generally is across any population of companies or entities, only about 15% of them are showing any type of uptick in interest on any given product area. And probably a subset of that 15% is actually in market. So I think that's where the data works well. You're kind of getting into, tapping into that small percent.
Yeah. I want to follow up. There's a question that came in the box here, Mike, and Katie, I might need to come back to you on one of these as well. Gathering this intent data, Mike, what's the secret way to do that? It seems like it's very important behavior, what people are thinking about and doing, but devil's in the details. How do you get it?
Sure. Yeah. So the business we started about 4 or 5 years ago, we started co-oping together. We built a large cooperative of most of the biggest B2B media companies in the world. Right. So those companies control a lot of the websites and research portals where this research is taking place. Right. And over the years, we expanded that ecosystem to analyst firms and marketers themselves. And right. So now we can just listen to this research taking place across a big swath of the B2B internet. Got it.
So that's that big kind of conglomerate that you built. And then Katie, Peter had a question that kind of dovetails off that for Mike is fit data. Where do you find that people most can get that most accurately as they think about trying to, align that data source to their sales and marketing teams?
Was that just a layup for me? No. No, I mean, I think, when we talk about fit data, we're talking about data about a company, right? We're talking about data about a person. And then we're
that is a layup for you. Yeah.
I know.
Was a cheap question. Sorry. I was just asking what Peter asked. Peter asked it. It's not me.
So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people providing data out there. What I would say is that what we're finding more and more, and this gets back to the discussion around predictive and artificial intelligence, is that what people are more concerned about now is the quality of data versus the quantity. And I think that's been a shift in the market. The predictive models, the AI, they're only as good as the quality of the data that you have on your market. And so, obviously that's been our focus since day one, and we've grown for 10 years because of that. But that's what I would encourage people to do is, as they're evaluating all the different data providers out there, is focus as much on the quality. I would say focus more on the quality as they are on the quantity.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, Dave, let's go over to you here. So I like the fit. I like this intent data. Now I know inside sales, we've been looking at a couple different data sources and trying to study its effect in different outcomes and its ability to predict. Can you explain kind of your journey, some of the things you've been looking at and how that may fit into some of these other data sources that people think about predicting outcomes?
Yeah, of course. I love that framework, Katie. Fit, intent, opportunity, and the double click, from you, Mike, on what intent really means. Gosh, if you could bring that all together, how predictive would that be? It's to sell to. They're in the market right now. you know, they're doing research right now, and they actually like have I can start an opportunity. So that's like the holy grail. What we've come at it using pieces of those data, and we've done one other thing, which is we've experimented with what works and what doesn't. Like which behaviors which selling and buying behaviors are actually occurring, and they're associated with which types of engagement patterns. So like the existence of a phone call, it used to just disappear into the ether. You know, the rep hangs up the phone, and whether or not that call happened is going to be lost forever unless the rep turns and enters into her CRM, you know, 3:01 p.m. attempted phone call, Mary Jones, no answer, enter. Of course, she's never going to do that. But you want to know about phone calls, and you want to know which ones got answered and which ones didn't, and which ones resulted in a long conversation versus a short conversation, and which ones were against certain types of companies and which ones were against other companies, certain titles, certain industries, certain geographies, times of day of week. Like you want to know all of that. Like interactions by phone work under these conditions and don't work under those conditions. Same thing with email. I can send it at this time or that time. I can send it to this type of person, that type of person, this title, this industry, this geography. And some of them work and some of them don't. Some get open, some don't, some get forwarded, some get read, some don't. So all of that signal, like the stuff that I'm doing and what works and what doesn't, can be aggregated. It's the same way that Waze aggregates all of the driver's information. You've got millions of drivers who have Waze installed on their phone, and it's streaming data back to Google. So Google knows at any given time, not only where the mileposts and signs, the signposts, mile markers, roads are, but also how fast the traffic's moving and whether or not there's an incident right then. So if I want to get from point A to point B, Waze is far more interesting and useful to me than MapQuest. Because MapQuest just knows the static information. Waze knows the dynamic information about how the network's being traversed right now. So that's a long windup, but Gabe, what we've been doing, we came at it from a little bit different angle. We don't always know why the fit, but we know that this type of phone call in this industry at this time of day, on this day of week, results in a conversation that ultimately results in a sale. Therefore, do more of that. It's sort of like the Amazon people who bought X also bought Y. Don't actually know why they bought it, but they bought those two things in conjunction. So it's the same with Google. Google's search algorithm, they don't know why a certain link is popular. They just know that a lot of people have linked into it. So they're inferring popularity, and they put it further up in the rank order. So the inside sales approach is to observe, and we at this point have 100 billion sales interactions and 6 trillion contextual data points around all of those. Every salesperson using inside sales is streaming data back the same way every driver streams data back to Waze. And we just, we've got critical mass now. So these types of things work, these types of things don't. Do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
Dave, is there a name or we've got kind of a fit and intent out there? Would you bucket that under one kind of naming convention?
It's not as clever as Katie's. I better work on that. Behavioral, the scientific name is behavioral data with outcomes. Mm-hmm. I do this, I get that result. I touch the stove, I get burnt. Don't do that again. So we're just basically pointing people to the things that work, and we're crowdsourcing all of that information from everybody else who's gone before.
Yeah, interesting. Guys, so that's probably a good foundation on some of the data that can be used in order to predict different outcomes. Don asked this, and actually we also had Mary in the Q&A ask it as well, as just data privacy laws. Is all of you think about, and maybe you could just do a quick short snippet on it, you think about collecting customer data, and Mike, whether that's intent, or Dave, whether that's through behavior, with all the data privacy concerns, especially in EMEA, maybe we don't need to tackle, let's go one at a time here, but thoughts on data privacy and the data that you're capturing, either fit, intent, or this kind of behavior stuff. Katie, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. So I was actually going to use an example of where Mike's team and my team are working together on a project. And so specific to that project, as Mike's team is gathering intent data across the web, there's no personally identifiable information that comes along with that.
Yeah.
So I can associate it with a company, but I can't associate it with a person. So when we bring that into Discover.org, we don't associate it with any people within the platform, but we recommend, hey, people with this kind of title at this company are the ones who are going to be most likely in charge of that purchase, whether they were the ones doing the research or not. So we're making sure that that personally identifiable information isn't coming through. For us specifically in our database, we're removing people who request to be removed, who are in those countries where that, those laws are in effect.
Yep.
And we're also letting our customers know that those people have also been asked to be removed.
Katie, it sounds like you've gotten the GDPR question maybe 1 million times. Is that?
We have gotten it a lot. It's definitely died down the last month or so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There was a big surge for that for a minute. Mike, your thoughts on just data privacy and kind of intent data?
Yeah, Katie hit most of it.
Yep.
At least in our world, we track businesses, not people. We do that, though, on a cookie level, an anonymous ID, a cookie. And in EMEA, we've had to work with the publishers that are in our co-op to make sure we're in their consent engines. And it turns out most of the consent engines, they're getting 80% of folks who opt in. So it hasn't been a big kind of like thunderbolt into our business. But broadly speaking, we're pretty far away from any concerns just based on our tracking of companies, not people.
Interesting. Dave, last word on privacy, kind of thinking about maybe this behavioral and company data.
Yeah, so it's a big issue. The way we do it is we abstract to profiles and not individuals. So we know about someone with a VP title in human resources who lives in Toledo, but we don't know necessarily about, a first last name. But we know enough about a profile, and it's the same way that Amazon does it. People like this may enjoy that, and we know people like this may engage in this way.
Got it. So the anonymization of it. Interesting. Don, let us know if that didn't answer your question. I think that's a great kind of cherry on top of the data piece. I want to get into actionability. If the foundation is laid and people are actually thinking about using data to become more scientific about sales and marketing, how do we actually operationalize these concepts in reality? And we can go sales or marketing, or get sales and marketing aligned on it. Katie, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. I mean, I think the simplest way that we've seen people starting is really getting sales and marketing aligned around a set of accounts that they're going to go after over a given period of time. And that given period of time is different for every company based on your sales cycle and the complexity of the deal. But if you can bring together fit, intent, and opportunity, and what we love with the product of Discover.org is that we do bring all three of those in one place together, then you can really prioritize. Look, these are the target accounts who look right. They're engaging with me, or they're signaling implicitly that they're interested, and the timing is right at those companies. And then as a sales and marketing team, once we know who those target accounts are we're going to go after, then we're going to figure out what the sales team is going to do, what the marketing is going to do, and where those handoffs are.
Got it. So number one, see if you can't get this really applicable in the identification of your target accounts and start attacking those appropriately.
Yep.
Got it. Mike, what would you kind of say practical? How do you start to use this data? Anything you add to what Katie said?
Yeah, I think just kind of building on what Katie said, I think that alignment piece is really important. So we think of sales and marketing, it's just one go-to-market motion. I think everybody knows. So why not have all of those kind of bullets flying in the same direction? So if through this, whether you call it AI or predictive or fit plus intent plus opportunity, if you start their audience first, there's no reason why marketing and sales can't be, calling and showing ads to the same companies at the same time. Sometimes those things are going to happen in different operational work streams, and that's okay as long as the strategy is aligned from the beginning.
Got it. So you continue down that path of target account, making sure all resources are pointing at the same thing. Dave, would you add to that, or how can someone operationalize thinking about, getting this data in place and becoming more data driven?
So once you have kind of that thesis, I think the next thing to do is just put it in motion, and don't forget to measure it. Everything's about testing. So, hey, great. I think that this type of company under these type of intent conditions, and this type of opportunity signal is a prime candidate.
Yeah.
Or let me do X, Y, and Z, you know, call, email, email, whatever it is. Well, log it. Let's log it. Let's log that we actually called, emailed. And when we did it work or not? And if it didn't, so that's actual data too. It's like, how did I pursue that strategy and did it work? And if it didn't, can I tweak it? It's exactly how online marketers work. You know, they put the button in the top left, the bottom right, they make it green, they make it red, they combine two things for a buy one, get one. And every single one of those experiments is measured and monitored, and the stuff that works, they double down, and the stuff that doesn't work, they pull away. So it's the same for sales. We just got to measure and monitor and make sure that we are tweaking it. And because market conditions can change, territories can get exhausted. You may have to go look for things, you know, somewhere else once you've kind of gotten to the bottom of your list. And it's all about experimentation, and experimentation means measuring, monitoring, testing.
Yeah. Taylor asked a good question here, you guys, that I think probably fits in well. It's just, it seems like a lot of reps are rejecting this concept of predictive in general. They don't believe it. They don't follow it. They don't want to do it. Why do you think that is? How would you recommend companies get over that? Dave, you just ended. Can we start with you?
It's human nature. Of course they are. Like, there's no machine that's smarter than me. I know my territory. I know my customers. I know my business. I'm not going to let a machine tell me what to do. It's human nature. Got it. I just think I think the answer is around measuring and monitoring and reporting back. So we experience the exact same thing with our customers. And the more experienced and the more successful a sales rep is, the less likely she is going to be to sort of take some black box recommendation. But then you just measure, like, okay, X% of the time I take the recommendation, and 1 minus X% of the time I just go on my own. Okay, well, what were the results in column A and what were the results in column B? And you just compare it. We actually surface that in our dashboards. There are teams who are high adopters and teams that are low adopters, and then we just compare the results. And if the ones that are adopting more are making more money, the other ones will come around, you know, like if it's working, it's working. And I don't take every Netflix recommendation, but I don't skip them. I don't go straight to the A to Z catalog.
Yeah.
I take it as a recommendation. I take it under advisement, and it helps guide me to, you know, things that are going to work.
Interesting. Katie, anything you'd add to that? I mean, you probably play in this world in kind of the, in the Discover Org world you play in.
Well, I think about it actually as a practitioner, right? I'm leading a marketing team and working with a sales team.
Yeah.
So I think in addition to what Dave would say, which I think is absolutely right, number one, you have to measure it, right? The proof is in the pudding. So, but I think what does help is upfront getting both teams in agreement on what's going to be included in that predictive model. Yeah. So at least, you know, I think where we've seen the biggest resistance from sales is where marketing is off building a predictive model, whether it's lead scoring or account scoring or one of the black box, whatever kind of predictive model it is. And they're passing those leads over to sales, and sales has no idea why they're getting them and why they're supposed to be predictive. Yeah. So at the very least, both teams should be involved in that process. And then, as Dave mentioned, then you got to measure, is it working? Is it not working?
Yeah. Mike, I want to ask you one question. Krishna came in, a couple good questions. You may or may not have an opinion on this, but he says some of the ABM platforms state that they can build this ICP, this individual customer profile, with fit plus engagement plus attend. Question is, will ABM platforms solve this puzzle by going after ICP-based accounts only?
I mean, I think it sounds to me like it sounds similar to what we're talking about, right? Yeah. It's like there's a lot of platforms out there that are trying to solve for exactly what we're talking about today, which is, hey, there's a set of accounts that are in my TAM or high fit, and there's a set of accounts that are showing intent. We're a pure data company, so we work with almost all of those platforms. So when they're talking about intent, it's probably the Bombora data that's handling that part of that solution. But yeah, I don't know if there's something more specific, but it sounds just, like, lots of platforms trying to solve what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Guys, keep these questions coming. Again, we're getting close to the end here, but I want to answer your questions. Robert, I'm going to jump right to this one because this hits back on just the data perspective, you guys. And Robert says, what kind of volume is needed to build a predictive model? We talk about data. A lot of these companies, they don't have millions of transactions. I mean, they close 12, deals a year if they're an enterprise company. Dave, let's start back at you. What kind of volume is needed in order to win? Can a company do this on their own?
Those are two different questions. What we found is we can get predictive, meaning we'll have an area under the curve that is attractive. It's better than 0.5, which is kind of a mathematical precision measure. If we have 10,000 resolved pursuits, resolved won, resolved lost, if we have 10,000. Now, a lot of companies will say, well, I don't have 10,000 resolved won and resolved lost logged in my CRM, and or the stuff that's logged in my CRM I don't trust. It's dirty data. I don't want to build a model off of that. That's fine. Then you would want to revert to a cross-company model. There's no single Waze driver has driven every single road in every single state and every single country. So they rely on the wisdom of crowds. It's all somebody else has driven it, so let me rely on their experience. So that 10,000 can get you a certain amount of the way there, but it still can't tell you about things you've never experienced. The thing that can tell you about things that never experienced is other people who've experienced that already.
Yeah. Mike, what would you add to that? I mean, you play in kind of a big data space. Oh, Mike, did I lose you?
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm on mute. No, I mean, I don't have too much to add. I think you guys are nailing it. I mean, it's like to go back to the kind of like getting sales to buy in. Like we saw the same thing. If salespeople saw the results and they're using this data-driven approach, then it can kind of go the other way and catch on like wildfire. Yeah. And salespeople are talking to each other about it, and everybody's using it and talking about it. So yeah, I think you guys are hitting it well with the measurement.
Good. Let's wrap up here, you guys. But I want to kind of get your closing statements, your closing remarks as you think about sales and marketing leaders who are trying to get this data-driven approach and start down this path of using data and science to optimize sales and marketing strategies. What piece of advice would you give them? Katie, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm going to actually go back to something Dave said earlier, which is I think you need to start small, right? Don't try to build the most complex, sophisticated model right away. Start small, maybe on a certain product, a certain target market, a certain set of accounts. Test it, measure what works, what doesn't work, was it predictive, not predictive, and then refine it. Just know that this is an iterative process. And I think that the companies that do it really well take that approach, and the companies that fail are those who try to get it right the first time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't always get it right on try one. Mike, what would you kind of leave for leaders trying to get into this space?
Yeah, I always go back to the sales and marketing alignment piece because there's phone calls being made and emails being sent by salespeople, and there's dollars being spent by marketers. Like those two things are happening. So why not point them in the same direction at the same time? Like take that last extra piece of effort and alignment to get on the same page, even if it's in a small scale way, to Katie's point. And I think, the results will be at least, 50, 60% better out of the gate.
Love it. Love it. Dave, your side?
Well, I could not agree more with Mike and Katie. There's a cool comment in the right chat bar from Don. He's like, I challenge my teams to try it my way, the new way, with an honest effort. And if it's not better, they can go back to their way. That's kind of, I think that's what, the future is, we all know it. The future is letting machines help us live a better and more fulfilled life. Our cars are making recommendations to us. Our thermostats are making recommendations to us. All of our online apps are making recommendations. Our phone is making recommendations. It's all based on data and science. I can ignore all of it and just go to the woods and, live a simple life, or I can start adopting and use the things that work. And, I agree with Don and with Katie and with Mike. try it, put it into place, see what helps, and what works, double down on it. But I really do not think that the future is a bunch of lone wolf salespeople, rejecting technology, rejecting data and science, and just trying to go on their own. I think the future involves data and science, and we should figure out how to incorporate it. And if we want to be competitive in our industry, we should do it before our competitors do it and figure it out before they do.
Yeah, definitely potentially an advantage if you can get this and do it right, but there probably is going to be some testing in that. So wanted to do a special thanks to our panel members. Dave, thanks so much for joining. Katie and Mike, I think they would all be maybe not offended, that's probably not the right word, but they'd be sad if you didn't connect with them to continue the conversation on Twitter or LinkedIn. Want to make sure as we see this wrap on the webinar, we will be including 2 pieces of information for you. One is this study that Katie talked about. You can find that at discover.org. We'll include a link tomorrow, and you'll see that also in a link here in your chat box. Dive a little deeper into this concept of intent, opportunity, and fit, and see how that can maybe fit into your business. In addition, we've got an offer about diving deeper down the predictive structure. If you want to dive into that, we've got a concept called the neural scan, where we come in and see what is your data situation look like and how can you take it to the next level thinking about predictive. So again, you'll see those links here right now in the chat box, and then you will also see those come across in your email. Thanks again so much for joining. Again, thanks to the audience for coming, and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you.